Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. First translations or first Sanskrit? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Brahma Samhita. Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the Supreme Godhead. He has an eternal, blissful spiritual body. He is the origin of all. He has no other origin, and he is the prime cause of all causes. The spiritual place of the transcendental pastimes of Krishna is portrayed in the second verse. The super excellent station of Krishna, which is known as Gokul, has thousands of petals and a corolla, like that of a lotus sprouted from a part of his infinite aspect. The whirl of the leaves being the actual abode of Krishna. The whirl of that transcendental lotus is the realm wherein dwells Krishna. It is the hexagonal figure, the abode of the indwelling, predominated and predominating aspect of the Absolute. Like a diamond, the central supporting figure of self-luminous Krishna stands as the transcendental source of all potencies. The holy name, consisting of 18 transcendental letters, is manifested in a hexagonal figure with sixfold divisions. The whirl of that eternal realm, Gokul, is the hexagonal abode of Krishna. Its petals are the abodes of gopis, who are part and parcel of Krishna, to whom they are most lovingly devoted and are similar in essence. The petals shine beautifully like so many walls. The extended leaves of that lotus are the garden-like dham, or spiritual abode of Sri Radhika, the most beloved of Krishna. The surrounding external plane of Gokula is described in this verse. There is a mysterious quadrangular place named Shvetadvip surrounding the outskirts of Gokula. Shvetadvip is divided into 4 parts on all sides. The abode of Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha are separately located in each of these 4 parts. These 4 divided abodes are enveloped by the fourfold human requirements, such as piety, wealth, passion, and liberation, as also by the 4 Vedas, the Rig, Sama, Yajur, and Atharva, which deal with the mantras and which are the basis of achievements of the fourfold mundane requirements. 10 tridents are fixed in the 10 directions, including the zenith and nadir. The 8 directions are decorated with the 8 jewels of Mahapadma, Padma, Shankha, Makara, Kachapa, Mukunda, Kunda, and Nila. There are 10 protectors, Dikpalas, of the 10 directions in the form of mantra. Can I get a book? The associates of the hues of blue, yellow, red, and white, and the extraordinary potency bearing the names of Vimala, etc., shine on all sides. Yeah. The Lord of Gokula is the transcendental Supreme Godhead, the own self of eternal ecstasies. He is the superior of all superiors and is busily engaged in the enjoyment of the transcendental realm and has no association with his mundane potency. Krishna never consorts with his illusory energy. Still, her connection is not entirely cut off from the absolute truth. When he intends to create the material world, the amorous pastimes in which he engages by consorting with his own spiritual chit potency, Rama, by casting his glance of the deluding energy in the shape of sending his time energy, is an auxiliary activity. The secondary process of association with Maya is described. Rama Devi, the spiritual chit potency, beloved consort of the Supreme Lord, is the regulatrix of all entities. The divine plenary portion of Krishna creates the mundane world. At creation there appears a divine halo of the nature of his own subjective portion, Svangsha. This halo is divine Shambhu, the masculine symbol of manifested emblem of the Supreme Lord. This halo is the dim twilight reflection of the Supreme Eternal Effulgence. This masculine symbol is the subjective portion of divinity, who functions as progenitor of the mundane world, subject to the supreme regulatrix, Niyati. The conceiving potency in regard to mundane creation makes her appearance out of the supreme regulatrix. She is Maya, the limited, non-absolute, Apara. Potency, the symbol of mundane feminine productivity. The intercourse of these two brings forth the faculty of perverted cognition, the reflection of the seed of the procreative desire of the Supreme Lord. All offspring of the consort of the great Lord Maheshwar of this mundane world are of the nature of the embodiment of the mundane masculine and feminine generative organs. The person embodying the material causal principle, the great Lord of this mundane world, Maheshwar Shambhu, in the form of the male generating organ, is joined to his female consort, the limited energy Maya, as the efficient causal principle. The Lord of the world, Mahavishnu, is manifest in him by a subjective portion in the form of his glance. The Lord of the mundane world, Mahavishnu, possesses thousands of heads, eyes, hands. He is the source of thousands of avatars in his thousands of subjective portions. He is the creator of thousands of individual souls. The same Mahavishnu is spoken of by the name of Narayana in this mundane world. From that eternal person has sprung the vast expanse of water of the spiritual causal ocean. The subjective portion of Sankarshana, who abides in Paravyoma, the above Supreme Purusha with thousands of subjective portions, reposes in the state of divine sleep, Yoga Nidra, in the waters of the spiritual causal ocean. The spiritual seed of Sankarshana, existing in the pores of skin of Mahavishnu, are born as so many golden sperms. These sperms are covered with 5 great elements. The same Mahavishnu entered into each universe as his own separate subjective portions. The divine portions that entered into each universe are possessed of his majestic extension. They are the eternal, universal soul, Mahavishnu, possessing thousands of heads. The same Mahavishnu created Vishnu from his left limb, Brahma, the first progenitor of beings, from his right limb, and from the space between his 2 eyebrows, Shambhu, the divine masculine manifested halo. The function of Shambhu in relation to jivas is that this universe, enshrining the mundane egoistic principle, has originated from Shambhu. Thereupon the same great personal Godhead, assuming the threefold forms of Vishnu, Prajapati and Shambhu, entering into the mundane universe, plays the pastimes of preservation, creation and destruction of this world. This pastimes contained in the mundane world. Hence it being perverted, the Supreme Lord, identical with Mahavishnu, prefers to consort with the goddess Nidra, Yoga Nidra, the constituent of his own spiritual chit potency, full of the ecstatic trance of eternal bliss appertaining to his own divine personality. When Vishnu, lying in the ocean of milk, wills to create this universe, a golden lotus springs from his navel pit. The golden lotus with its stem is the abode of Brahma, representing Brahmalok or Satyalok. Before their conglomeration, the primary elements in their nascent state remained originally separate entities. Non-application of the conglomerating process is the cause of their separate existence. Divine Mahavishnu, primal Godhead, through association with his own spiritual chit potency, moved Maya, and by the application of the conglomerating principle, created those different entities in their state of cooperation. And after that, he himself consorted with Yoga Nidra by ways of his eternal dalliance with his spiritual chit potency. By conglomerating all those separate entities, he manifested the innumerable mundane universes, and he himself entered into the inmost recess of every extended conglomerate, Virat Vigraha. At that time, those jivas who had lain dormant during the cataclysm were awakened. The same jiva is eternal and is for eternity and without a beginning joined to the Supreme Lord by the tie of an eternal kinship. He is transcendental spiritual potency. The divine lotus, which springs from the navel pit of Vishnu, is in every way related by the spiritual tie with all souls and is the origin of four-faced Brahma, versed in the four Vedas. On coming out of the lotus, Brahma, being guided by the divine potency, turned his mind to the act of creation under the impulse of previous impressions. But he couldn't see nothing. But he could see nothing but darkness in every direction. Then the goddess of learning, Saraswati, the divine consort of the Supreme Lord, said thus to Brahma, who saw nothing but gloom in all directions, "O Brahma, this mantra, Klim Krishnaya Govindaya Gopi Janavalabhaya Swaha, will assuredly fulfill your heart's desire. O Brahma, do thou practice spiritual association by means of this mantra, then all your desires will be fulfilled." Brahma, being desirous of satisfying Govinda, practiced the cultural acts for Krishna in Goloka, Lord of Shvetadvip, for a long time. His meditation ran thus: there exists a divine lotus of 1,000 petals, augmented by millions of filaments in the transcendental land of Goloka. On its whirl there exists a great divine throne on which is seated Sri Krishna, the form of eternal effulgence of transcendental bliss. Playing on his divine flute, resonant with the divine sound, with his lotus mouth, he is worshipped by his amorous milkmaids, with their respective subjective portions and extensions, and also by his external energy, who stays outside, embodying all mundane qualities. Then Gayatri, mother of the Vedas, being made manifest, imparted by the divine sound of the flute of Sri Krishna, entered into the lotus mouth of Brahma, born from himself through his 8 ear holes. The lotus-born Brahma, having received the Gayatri sprung from the flute song of Sri Krishna, attained the status of the twice-born, having been initiated by the supreme primal preceptor, Godhead himself. Enlightened by the recollection of that Gayatri embodying the 3 Vedas, Brahma became acquainted with the expanse of the ocean of truth. Then he worshipped Sri Krishna, the essence of all Vedas, with this hymn: I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor, who's tending the cows, yielding all desires in abodes built with spiritual gems, surrounded by millions of purpose trees, always served with great reverence and affection by hundreds of thousands of Lakshmis or Gopis. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is adept in playing on his flute, with blooming eyes like lotus petals, with head decked with peacock feathers, with the figure of beauty tinged to the hue of blue clouds, and his unique loveliness charming millions of cupids. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, round whose neck is swinging a garland of flowers beautified with the moon locket, whose 2 hands are adorned with the flute and jeweled ornaments, who always revels in pastimes of love, whose graceful 3-fold bending form of Shyama Sundar is eternally manifest. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose transcendental form is full of bliss, truth, substantiality, and is thus full of the most dazzling splendor. Each of the limbs of that transcendental figure possesses in himself the full-fledged functions of all the organs, and eternally sees, maintains, and manifests the infinite universes, both spiritual and mundane. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is inaccessible to the Vedas, but obtainable by pure unalloyed devotion of the soul, who is one without a second, who is not subject to decay, is without a beginning, whose form is endless, who is the beginning and the eternal Purusha, yet he is a person possessing the beauty of blooming youth. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, only the tip of the toe of whose lotus feet is approached by the yogis who aspire after the transcendental and betake themselves to pranayama by drilling the respiration, or by the jnanis who try to find out the non-differentiated Brahman by the process of elimination of the mundane, extending over thousands of millions of years. He is an undifferentiated entity, as there is no distinction between potency and the possessor thereof. In his work of creation of millions of worlds, his potency remains inseparable. All the universes exist in him, and he is present in his fullness in every one of the atoms that are scattered throughout the universe at one and the same time. Such is the primeval Lord whom I adore. I adore the same Govinda, the primeval Lord, in whose praise men who are imbued with devotion sing the mantra Shuktas, told by the Vedas, by gaining their appropriate beauty, greatness, thrones, conveyances, and ornaments. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, residing in his own realm, Goloka Vivrata, resembling his own spiritual figure, the embodiment of the ecstatic potency, possessed of the 64 artistic activities, in the company of her confident Sakhis, embodiments of the extensions of her bodily form, permeated and vitalized by his ever blissful spiritual rasa. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is Shyama Sundar, Krishna himself, of inconceivable, innumerable attributes, whom the pure devotees see in their heart of hearts, with the eye of devotion tinged with the salve of love. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who manifested himself personally as Krishna and the different avatars in the world in the forms of Rama, Nrsimha, Vamana, etc. as his subjective portions. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose effulgence is the source of the non-differentiated Brahman mentioned in the Upanishads, being differentiated from the infinity of glories of the mundane universe, appears as the indivisible, infinite, limitless truth. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is the absolute, substantive principle, being the ultimate entity in the form of the support of all existence, whose external potency embodies the threefold mundane qualities, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, and diffuses the Vedic knowledge regarding the mundane world. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose glory ever triumphantly dominates the mundane world by the activity of his own pastimes, being reflected in the mind of recollecting souls as the transcendental entity of ever blissful cognitive rasa. Lowest of all is located Devidam, mundane world. Next, above it is Mahesh Dham, abode of Mahesh. Above Mahesh Dham is placed Haridam, abode of Hari. And above them all is located Krishna's own realm, named Goloka. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, who has allotted their respective authorities to the rulers of those graded realms. The external potency Maya, who is of the nature of the shadow of the Chit potency, is worshipped by all people as Durga, the creating, preserving, and destroying agency of this mundane world. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, in accordance with whose will Durga conducts herself. Just as milk is transformed into curd by the action of acids, but yet the effect curd is neither same as nor different from its cause, milk, so I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, of whom the state of Shambhu is a transformation for the performance of the work of destruction. The light of one candle being communicated to other candles, although it burns separately in them is the same in its quality. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, who exhibits himself equally in the same mobile manner in his various manifestations. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, who, assuming his own great subjective form, who bears the name of Shesha, replete with the all-accommodating potency, and reposing in the causal ocean with the infinity of the world in the pores of his hair, enjoys creative sleep, yoga nidra. Brahma and other lords of the mundane world, appearing from the pores of hair of Mahavishnu, remain alive as long as the duration of one exhalation of the latter, Mahavishnu. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, of whose subjective personality, Mahavishnu, is the portion of a portion. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, from whom the separated subjective portion, Brahma, receives his power for the regulation of the mundane world, just as the sun manifests some portion of his own light in all the effulgent gems that bear the names of Surya, Kanta, etc. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, whose lotus feet are always held by Ganesha upon the pair of tumuli protruding from his elephant head, in order to obtain power for his function of destroying all the obstacles on the path of progress of the three worlds. The three worlds are composed of the 9 elements: fire, earth, ether, water, air, direction, time, soul, and mind. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, from whom they originate, in whom they exist, and into whom they enter at the time of the universal cataclysm. The sun, who is the king of all the planets, full of infinite effulgence, the image of the good soul, is as the eye of this world. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, in pursuance of whose order the sun performs his journey, mounting the wheel of time. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, by whose conferred power are maintained the manifested potencies that are found to exist of all virtues, all vices, the Vedas, the penances, and all jivas, from Brahma to the meanest insect. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, who burns up to their roots all fruitive activities of those who are imbued with devotion, and impartially ordains for each the due enjoyment of the fruits of one's activities. Of all those who walk in the path of work, in accordance with the chain of their previously performed works, no less in the case of the tiny insect that bears the name of Indra Gopa than in that of Indra, the king of the Devas. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, the meditators of whom, by meditating upon him under the sway of wrath, amorous passion, natural friendly love, fear, parental affection, delusion, reverence, and willing service, attain to bodily forms befitting the nature of their contemplation. I worship that transcendental seat known as Shveta Dvipa, where as loving consorts, the Lakshmis, in their unalloyed spiritual essence, practice the amorous service of the Supreme Lord Krishna as their only lover, where every tree is a transcendental purpose tree, where the soil is the purpose gem, all water is nectar, every word is a song, every gate is a dance, the flute is the favorite attendant, effulgence is full of transcendental bliss, and the supreme spiritual entities are all enjoyable and tasty, where numberless milk cows always emit transcendental oceans of milk, where there is eternal existence of transcendental time, who is ever present and without past or future, and hence is not subject to the quality of passing away, even for the space of half a moment. That realm is known as Goloka, only to a very few self-realized souls in this world. On hearing these hymns containing the essence of the truth, the Supreme Lord Krishna said to Brahma, Brahma, if you experience the inclination to create offspring by being endowed with the real knowledge of the glory of Godhead, listen, my beloved, from me to the sign set forth in the following 5 shlokas. When the pure spiritual experience is excited by means of cognition and service, bhakti, super excellent unalloyed devotion characterized by love for Godhead, is awakened toward Krishna, the beloved of all souls. The highest devotion is attained by slow degrees, by the method of constant endeavor for self-realization with the help of scriptural evidence, theistic conduct, and perseverance in practice. These preliminary practices of devotion, sadhan bhakti, are conducive to the realization of loving devotion. Loving devotion, than whom there is no superior well-being, who goes hand in hand with the attainment of the exclusive state of supreme bliss, and who can lead to myself. Abandoning all meritorious performances, serve me with faith. The realization will correspond to the nature of one's faith. The people of the world act ceaselessly in pursuance of some ideal. By meditating on me by means of those deeds, one will obtain devotion characterized by love in the shape of the supreme service. Listen, O Vidi, I'm the seed, the fundamental principle of this world, of animate and inanimate objects. I'm Pradhan, the substance of matter. I'm Prakriti, material cause, and I'm Purusha, efficient cause. This fiery energy that belongs specially to the Brahman, that inheres in you, has also been conferred by me. It is by bearing this fiery energy that you regulate this phenomenal world of animate and inanimate objects. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachit Ananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. Okay, let's wait till everybody's got it. Okay. Okay. Ready? Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam Sahasra Patra Kamalam Kukulakyam Mahatpadam Tat Karnikaram Tad Dama Tad Anantang Shasambhavam Karnikaram Mahatyantram Satkonam Vajrakilakam Sadanga Satpati Stanam Prakritya Purushena Cha Premananda Mahananda Rasena Vastitang Hiyat Jyoti Rupena Manuna Kama Bijena Sangatam Tat Kinjilkam Tat Angshangnam Tat Patrani Shriyam Api Chatur Ashram Tat Parita Shveta Dvipakyam Adbhutam Chatur Asram Chatur Murtes Chatur Dama Chatuskritam Chaturbhi Purushartaischa Chaturbhir Hetubhir Vritam Shulair Dashabhir Anandam Urdavadho Dikvidikshavapi Astabhir Niddidir Jushtang Ashtabhi Siddhibhistata Manurupais Chadashabhir Dikpalai Parito Vritam Shyamair Gaurais Charaktais Cha Shuklais Cha Parshadarshabai Shobhitam Shakti Bistabir Adbhutabhi Samantata Evam Jyotir Maya Deva Sat Ananda Paratparaha Atmaramasya Tasyasti Prakrityana Samagamaha Mayayaram Mamanasya Naviyogastaya Saha Atmana Ramaya Reme Tyakta Kalang Sisrikshaya Niyataksa Rama Devi Tatpritya Tyatvashang Tada Tadlingam Bhagavan Shambhur Jyoti Rupak Sanatanaha Yayoniksa Parashakti Kamo Bijam Mahaddaraha Dare Lingayonyatmika Jata Ima Maheshwari Prajaha Shaktiman Purushak Soyam Lingarupi Maheshwaraha Tasmin Avirabu Linge Mahavishnur Jagatpatihi Sahasra Shirsha Purushaha Sahasraksha Sahasrapat Sahasra Bahur Vishvatma Sahasrangsha Sahasrasuhu Narayanak Sabhagavan Apastasmat Sanatanat Avira Sitkaranarno Nidhi Sankarshanatmakaha Yoga Nidram Gatastasmin Saham Shrangsha Svayang Mahan Taroma Bilajaleshu Bijam Shankarshanasya Cha Haimanyandani Jatani Mahabhuta Vritani Tu Pratyandang Evam Ekangshat Vishati Svayam Sahasra Murda Vishvatma Mahavishnu Sanatana Vamangat Asrijad Vishnum Dakshinangat Prajapatim Jyotirlingamayang Shambhum Kurchat Deshad Avisrijat Ahankaratmakam Vishwam Tasmadetad Vyajayata Atataistri Vidair Veshair Lilam Udvahatakila Yoga Nidra Bhagavati Tasya Shri Rivasangata Sisrikshayam Tato Nabis Tasya Padmam Viniryayau Tannalam Hevanalinam Brahmano Lokamadbhutam Tatvani Purvarudhani Karanani Parasparam Samavaya Pratyogakcha Vibinnani Pratak Pratak Chaktya Sajjamanota Bhagavanadi Purushaha Yojayanma Yaya Devo Yoga Nidram Kalpayat Jayitva Tuitanyeva Pravivesha Swayanguham Guhang Pravishte Tasmingstu Jivatma Pratibudhyate Sanityo Nitya Sambandha Prakrityascha Parevasa Evang Sarvatma Sambandham nabhayam padmam harer abhut, tatra brahma bhavat bhuyas chaturvedi chaturmukha, sanchato bhagavat chaktya tatkalam khila choditaha, sisrikshayam matim chakre purva sanskara sanskritaha, tadarsha kevalang dvantam nanyat kim api sarvataha, uvacha puratastasmai tasya divya sarasvati, kama krishnaya govinda hi gopi janaityapi, valabhaya priyavanir mantram te dasyati priyam, tapastvang tapa etena tavasiddhir bhavishyati, atatepe sashuchiram prinam govindam avyayam, shvetva dipa patim krishnam kolokastam paratparam, prakritya gunarupinya rupinya paryupasitam, sahasradala sampanne koti kinchalka bringhite, bhumischinta manistatra karnikare mahasane, sasinam chidanandam jyoti rupam sanatanam, shapta brahma mayam venum vadayantam mukham bhuje, vilasini ganavrittang shvai svair angshair abhishtutam, ata venu ninadasya trai murti maikati, spuranti praviveshashu mukhabjani svayambhuvaha, gayatrim gayatastasmat adigatya sarojajaha, sanskritaschadigунuna dvichatang agamatamaha tataha, traya prabuddhota viddir vigyata tattvasagaraha, tushtava vedasarena shtrotrena nena keshavam, tamani prakarasadma sukalpa vriksha laksha vriteshu surabhira vipalayantam, lakshmi sahasra satasambhrama sevyamanam, govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami, venum kvanantam aravinda talaya taksham, parhavatang sangasitam buddha sundarangam, kandarpakoti kamaniya vishesha shobham, govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami, alola chandrakala sadvana malya vangshi, ratnangadam pranayakeli kala vilasam, shyamam tribanga lalitam niyata prakasham, govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami, angani yasya sakalendriya vrittimanti, pashyanti panti kalayanti chiram jaganti, ananda chinmaya sadujvala vigrahasya, govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami, advaitam achyutam anadim anantarupam, adyam purana purusham navayovanam cha, vedeshu durlabham adurlabham atma bhakto, govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami, pantastu koti shatavatsara sampragamyo, vayo ratapi manaso muni pungavanam, sopyasti yat prapadasimnya vicintya tattve, govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami, ekopya saura chaitum jagaranda kotim, yachchaktirasti jagaranda chayaya danta, andantarasta paramanu chayantarastam, govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami, yat bhava bhavita diyo manujastateva, samprapya rupa mahimangshana bhusha, shuktair-yang-eva nigama pratitaistuvanti, govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami, ananda chinmaya rasa pratibhavitabis, tabirya eva nijarupataya kalabhi, goloka eva nivasatya kilatma bhuto, govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami, premanjana churita bhakti vilochanena, santak sadeva hridayeshu vilokayanti, yam shyama sundaram achintya gunaksvarupam, govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami, Ramadimurtishu kalani amena tishtan Nanavataram bhuvaneshu kintu Krishnak swayam samabhavat paramak pumanyo Govindamari purusham tamaham bhajami Yasya prabha prabhavato jagaranda koti Koti shvashesha vasudadi vibhuti binnam Tad brahma nishkalam anantam ashesha bhutam Govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami Maya hi yasya jagarandi shatani sute Traigunya tadvishaya vera vimayamana Sattva valambi parasatvam vishuddha sattvam Govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami Ananda chinmaya rasatmataya manaksu Yak praninam pratifalam smaratam upetya Lilayitena bhuvanani jayatya jasram Govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami Golokanamni nijadamni chaleta tasya Devi mahesha haridama suteshu teshu Te prabhavani chaya vihitaschayena Govindamari purusham tamaham bhajami Sriti siti pralaya sadhana shakti rekha Chayeva yasya bhuvanani vibharti durga Ichchanurupam api yasya chacheshtate sa Govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami Hiramyatadi vikara vishesha jogat Sanjayate nahi tatak pritagasti heto Yaksham bhutam api tatak samupaiti karyat Govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami Deeparchireva hi tashantaramapyupetya Deepayate vivrita hetu samana dharma Yastadrigeva hi cha vishnutaya vibhati Govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami Yakkaranarnava jale bhajati sma yoga Nidram ananta jagadanda saroma kupa Adhara shaktim avalambya param swamurtim Govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami Yasyaika nishvasita kalamatavalambyā Jivanti loma vilaja jagadandanata Vishnur mahansa iha yasya kala vishesho Govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami Basvanyatashma sakaleshu nijeshu teja Sviyankiyat prakatayatyapi tattvadatra Brahmaya esha jagadanda vidana karta Govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami Pada pallava yugam vinidaya kumbha Dvandve pranama samaya yaganadi raja Vignan vihantu malamasya jagatrayasya Govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami Agnir mahi gaganamambo maruddishascha Kalastatatma manasiti jagatrayani Yasmat bhavanti vibhavanti vishanti yamcha Govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami Yachchakshuresha savita sakalagrahanam Raja samasta suramurti rashesha teja Yasyagyaya brahmati sambrita kala chakro Govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami Dharmo tapapa nichaya shutayastatamshi Brahmadikita patagavadayascha jiva Yaddatta matra vibhava prakata prabhava Govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami Astvindra gopamatavendra mahoksvakama Bandhanurupa falabhajana matanoti Karmani nirdahati kintuja bhakti bhajam Govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami Yam krodha kama sahaja pranayadi bhiti Vatsalya moha guru gaurava sevya bhavai Sanchintya tasya sadrishim tanuma purete Govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami Shriya Kanta Kanta Paramapurusha Kalpataravo Druma Bhumischintamani Ganamaito Yamamritam Kataganam Natyam Gamanam Api Vangshi Priyasaki Chidanandam Jyoti Paramapi Tat Asvadyang Apicha Sayatra Kshirabdi Sravati Surabibhyascha Sumahan Nimeshardakyo va vrajati nahi yatrapi samaya Bhaje Shveta Dvipam Damaham iha golokamitiyam Vinantaste santakshiti viralachara katipaye Ato vacha mahavishnur bhagavantam prajapatim Brahmam mahatva vigyane prajasarge chachenmati Panchashlokim imam vidyam vatsadattam nibodame Prabhude Jnana Bhaktibhyam Atmani Ananda Chinmayi Udetyanuttama Bhaktir Bhagavat Prema Lakshana Premanais Tat Sat Acharais Tat Abhyasair Nirantaram Budayanatmanatmanam Bhaktim Apyuttamam Labet Yasya Shreyaskaram Nasti Yaya Nivrittim Apnuyat Yasadayat imam Meva Bhaktim Tam Eva Sadayet Dharmam anyang parityajya mamekam bhaja vishvasan yadrishi yadrishi shraddha siddhir bhavati tadrishi kurvan nirantarang karma loko yam anuvartate tena eva karmana dhyayan mam param bhaktim ichchati aham hi vishvasya characharasya bijam pradhanam prakriti pumangscha Maya hitam teja idang bibarshi vide videhi tvang ato jaganti Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam Iti Sri Brahma Samhita Sampurnam Hari Om Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Can I have a drum, please? Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopiranna Balabha Girivaradari Gopiranna Balabha Girivaradari Yasodanandana Brajadanaranjana Yasodanandana Brajadanaranjana Yamunatihira Banachari Yamunatira Banachari Jayo Radha Madhavo Kunja Vihari Gopiranna Balabha Girivaradari Yasodanandana Brajadanaranjana Yamunatira Banachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Ramo Ramo, Hare Hare. Jayo Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol. Jayo Vishnupad Brahmansa Parivrajikacharya Satarasatasi Simati Rangaswami Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivinoda Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Jayo Vishnupad Brahmansa Parivrajikacharya Satarasatasi Simati Rangaswami Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur Prabhupada Ki. Anand Guru Vaishnava Vrinda Ki. ISKCON Guru Vrinda Ki. ISKCON Mirfanchar Srila Prabhupada Ki. Namachara Srila Haridas Thakur Ki. Prem si Gahosi Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Siveti Radhar Shiva Siddhi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki. C. Radha Krishna Gopagopinath Shyama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Gaurana Ki. Sri Vrindavan Dhama Ki. Sri Mathura Dhama Ki. Sri Jagannath Puri Dhama Ki. Sri Jagannath Swami Ki. Sri Mayapur Navadvip Dhama Ki. Shri Shri Pancha Tattva Ki. Shri Shri Radhamada Mohan Ki. Shri Shri Radhamadhav Ki. Shriman Mahaprabhu Ki, Shri Shri Lakshmi Nishingadev Bhagavan Ki, Harinam Sankirtan Yagya Ki, Gangamayinamai Ki, Tulsidev Bhakti Devi Ki, Srila Prabhupada Chansal Bhakti Sibhushan Ki, Auguries some devotees, Auguries some devotees, Auguries some devotees, Auguries to CC Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 8th canto, 19th chapter, text number 32. 8:19:32. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. So this is Srimad Bhagavatam, 8th canto, 19th chapter, text 32. Esha te sthanam aishwaryam shriyam tejo yashaha shrutam dasyati achchidya Shakraya Mayamanavako Hari Eshate Stanamaishwaryam Shriyam Tejo Yashashrutam Tasyatyachidya Shakraya Mayamanavako Hari Eshate Stanamaishwaryam Shriyam Tejo Yashashrutam Dasyatyachidya Shakraya Mayamanavako Hari. बोलिए. Okay. Eshate Stanamaishwaryam Shriyam Tejo Yashashrutam Tasyatyachidya Shakraya Mayamanavako Hari. Eshate Stanamaishwaryam Shriyam Tejo Yashashrutam Tachidya Shakraya Mayamanavako Hari. Dasyati Achitya Shakraya Navako Hari. Eshaha. This person falsely appearing as a brahmachari. Te, of you. Sthanam, the land in possession. Aishwaryam, the riches. Shriyam, the material beauty. Tejaha, the material power. Yashaha, the reputation. Shrutam, the education. Dasyati, will give. Achidya, taking from you. Shakraya, unto your enemy, Lord Indra. Maya, falsely appearing. Manavakaha, a brahmachari, son of a living being. Hari, he is actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari. So who is speaking this? Shukracharya, yes. So, translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivinoda Swami Srila Prabhupada. This person falsely appearing as a brahmachari is actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, who has come in this form to take away all your land, wealth, beauty, power, fame, and education. After taking everything from you, he will deliver it to Indra, your enemy. Purport. Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur explains in this regard that the very word Hari means one who takes away. If one connects himself with Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord takes away all his miseries. And in the beginning, the Lord also superficially appears to take away all his material possessions, reputation, education, and beauty. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 88th chapter, text number 8. Yasyaham manugrinami harishyeta dhanam shanai. The Lord said to Maharaj Yudhisthira, the first installment of my mercy toward a devotee is that I take away all his possessions, especially his material opulence, his money. Do you want to hear that again? The first installment of my mercy toward a devotee is that I take away all his possessions, especially his material opulence, his money. This is the special favor of the Lord toward a sincere devotee. If a sincere devotee wants Krishna above everything, but at the same time is attached to material possessions, which hinder his advancement in Krishna consciousness. By tactics, the Lord takes away all his possessions. Here, Shukracharya says that this dwarf brahmachari would take everything away. Thus, he indicates that the Lord will take away all one's material possessions and also one's mind. If one delivers his mind to the lotus feet of Krishna, Savaimana Krishna Padaravindayo, one can naturally sacrifice everything to satisfy him. Although Bali Maharaj was a devotee, he was attached to material possessions. And therefore the Lord, being very kind to him, showed him special favor by appearing as Lord Vaman to take away all his material possessions and his mind as well. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gedamhayam Dadhati Swapadantikam Jayasi Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Giradhar Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim Yat kripadamaham vande Sri Guru Dinutaranam Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanyeshwaram Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Eshate stanam aishwaryam shriyam tejo yashashrutam dasyatyach chidyash shakraya maya manavako hari. This person, falsely appearing as a brahmachari, is actually the Supreme Personality Godhead Hari, who has come in this form to take away all your land, wealth, beauty, power, fame, and education. After taking everything from you, he will deliver it to Indra, your enemy. Hare Krishna. So we welcome all of you to ISV. We're very grateful to be here today. Also welcome to our internet audience. Today's topic is Win-Win 101, the secrets of success. Surrender to the Supreme Lord is considered the highest success in life. If we look up in a dictionary the word success, 99% of the definitions pertain to opulence, achievement, wealth, gain, all the things that are associated with being successful in this world. Kunti Devi, she has summed it up. Chanmaishvarya shruta shribhir edamanamadak puman kimarhatya vidatum vaitangsta kinchana gojara. And what is she saying about all these wonderful qualities of success? That one who has these qualities of success, very unlikely, very difficult that such a person will surrender wholeheartedly to the Lord. Why? Because he thinks, I'm all set. I'm fine. I'm doing great. I got no problems. In fact, the only problem I have is you, because you're disturbing my enjoyment. That is the nature, that is the mindset of a materialist. So what are these qualities? Janma, good birth. I was born in a good place, in a good country. Of course, every hole is home if it's the place of your birth. So any person thinks that the land where they're born is worshipable, no matter where it is. Then Aishwarya, of course, wealth, because without money, nothing works. Nothing makes any sense here in the material world. And thus, money is sweeter than honey, and money is dearer than life. People are ready to die for money. As mercenaries, as merchants, as laborers. People are ready to risk their lives any given day just for money. Because money is considered success. If you have nothing but you have money, you're considered a success. You see, the very ugly old man with a beautiful young girl, but because he has money, so everybody is interested in him. Even though from any perspective, from any appearance, he is not very attractive. But because he has money, he becomes very attractive. And everybody wants to hear, oh, what's this fellow doing? Who are the richest people in the world? Everybody's interested in that. Janma Aishwarya, Shruta, learning, education. Oh, I have degree from this or that school. Very great sense of reputation. And of course, in the Vedic paradigm, Shriya comes last. Beauty comes last. Nowadays, beauty comes first. You can have nothing, but you have beauty. So then you are successful because you have beauty. But how long will beauty last? Only a few afternoons. And a few afternoons, they pass very fast. And then beauty is gone. Also, wealth is gone. All the great empires of the past, they're gone. Where are the Caesars, the Napoleons, the Subhash Chandra Boses? Where are the Akbars? They're all gone. And very few people even remember their names. They are just a list of letters on a piece of paper somewhere in a library. But people have long forgotten about them. So, as aspiring devotees, for us it is very important that we pause for a moment and we analyze what is actual success. Because when we come into this material world, by getting this body and by taking birth in a certain country and place, we are buying into the collective karma of that place. Or if we go to another place to work, we're buying into the mindset of the people and what they truly hold as success and valuable and achievable in life. Now for us as aspiring devotees, it is very important to analyze this, because otherwise we will be barking up the wrong tree. We will be fighting the wrong types of battles. Success, according to the Vedic paradigm, is defined in the succinct question, Ahishtam yattat punarjanma jayaya. How successful are you in conquering over the repetition of birth and death? To the degree that you're successful in conquering over the onslaught of material nature, this ocean of birth and death, bhava sagar, to that degree you're successful. So if you're 10% conquered, then you're 10% successful. It is not about any of these other accolades or any of these other achievements that people claim themselves to be so proud about. Now we have chosen the topic of the 8th canto, the story of Bali Maharaj, because he is showing us in a very graphic, in a very illustrative way, the successes and failures of this world. Just a few moments ago, Bali Maharaj, by the prowess of his austerity and by the dedication of his surrender to his spiritual master, Shukracharya, and by the worship of the Brahmins, he had conquered the heavenly planets. He had done the unimaginable, the unthinkable. He had ventured up into the heavens and he had kicked out Indra and the demigods from their abodes. Now that is certainly a greater success than anybody here could ever imagine or dream of. Here they think, if I just own a gas station or two, or if I become the chief of my department, or if I maybe have my own company, then I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing pretty well. Bali Maharaj, he was already the king of the demons. But not only that, he conquered the heavens. He drove away all the demigods. Of course, we know that later on. So this brings us to the first principle, that if you want to have success in life, you have to worship the spiritual master. Yasya prasadat bhagavat prasado, yasya prasadan nagati kutopi. And this is true whether you're a devotee or you're a demon, and anything in between, which means it's true for everybody. If you want success in life, you have to worship your teachers and you have to get their blessings. Without their blessings and sanctions, nothing is achievable. Nothing of substance is possible in this world. And you have to follow the process which is given in the Vedas. Because this is the mechanics. This is how the universe works. If you want a success, you have to follow the process. If you want a proper fruit, you have to do the sacrifice. Just like here in California, they're growing a lot of fruit. But it requires a lot of sacrifice. It's a lot of toil. It's a lot of sweat. It's a lot of endeavor. Requires a lot of water. Requires a lot of man hours to grow this produce. So, if we want a fruit, we have to be ready to invest. So, to invest means to put one's time, one's energy, one's money, one's dedication into the right place, to properly invest, to bear a proper fruit. So, Bali Maharaj did that, and he achieved what no one before thought was possible to achieve. Only a few had done this. His great-grandfather, Hiranyakashipu, had managed to do similar feat. Very few have done this. So, but then the tide got turned because Indra is a very intelligent person, and so he was very adamant to reclaim his properties, and he did so by the blessings of Brihaspati. And they defeated the demons to the extent that Bali Maharaj was killed. He was dead. Actually, he was killed. So you can say he went from the top to the bottom. From before he was on the bottom, king of the demons, then he went to the top, he conquered the heavens, then he was killed. So that is the ultimate defeat. He was again on the bottom. But then by the mercy of his guru, Shukracharya, he was brought back to life. Because he had the Sanjeevani mantra, he knew how to bring back the dead. So again he came to life. And so we can see that in this material world, what is one day success, the next day's failure is the next day's success. It is constantly changing. It is constantly always moving. There is no such thing as certainty. The only thing that is certain is that there is no certainty. You never know what's going to happen next. So here at this stage, we are at the time when Bali Maharaj had been approached by Vamandev. Now Vamandev is the Supreme Lord Vishnu, who by his own desire appeared in the form of a little Brahmin boy, a little dwarf. Now the Lord has great sense of humor. When he wants to have fun, then like he appears as Lord Varaha from the nostril of Brahma, as a little boar, a little male pig. Now that's quite humorous, isn't it? If you imagine. He just drops out of the nostril of his devotee as a little boar, and then he expands himself and becomes as big as the sky. So he does many wonderful things. So he goes to beg charity from his devotee, from Bali Maharaj, and he does so in the form of a little Vatu, a little Brahmin boy, a little dwarf, 5-year-old boy. And of course, Bali Maharaj is very charitable, and he's very devoted. So he says, anything you want is yours. Anything. And Vamandev is playing fun with him and is saying, oh, you're making such big words? Claiming in purport, Prabhupada is explaining that Bali Maharaj was having still this demoniac mentality. Even though he's a devotee, he has this demoniac mentality that everything belongs to me and it's mine to give in charity. A pure devotee, his mentality is nothing is mine. Everything belongs to the Lord. The demoniac mentality is Ishvaroham Mahambogi. I'm the controller, I'm the enjoyer. Out of my own volition, I'm making a charitable contribution. Bhagavad Gita, 17th chapter, explains to us charity in the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. And Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport to the charity in the mode of ignorance that even though you may be giving charity at the right time, at the right place, to the right person, but if your mentality is not pure, if you're thinking in some way that this is mine to give, out of my own greatness I'm giving, or I've been forced by some superior to do this, or I'm doing it to achieve an ulterior motive, a separate benefit, then it is charity in a mode of passion or ignorance. So we have to be careful when we engage in acts of charity. Not that we think, oh, why did I pledge? Why did I make that promise and now have to keep it? Let's wait. Maybe they'll forget about it. No. We should be very, very conscientious. Because Srila Prabhupada mentions, that the good word of honor, the integrity, is the only thing that a devotee has. And he's ready to keep that up, even at the risk of sacrificing his own life. Even if it costs him that dearly. So Bali Maharaj had given his promise, even though Vamandev was warning him that, you're making big claim here, but how do you know that you can actually back it up? And so here at this stage of the interaction, Shukracharya, there's an intermission. He's coming in, he's throwing the flag, he's saying, oh, time out, hold it. This is going the wrong way here. Like in the game, sometimes the coach, the captain, he calls for a timeout because the game is not in their favor. So he has a little group discussion before things continue. So here Shukracharya is presenting all these arguments. And what is he saying? He's saying, this is not a Brahmin boy. This is Hari. This is the Supreme Lord. And what is his quality? Hari, he takes away everything. So you'll be left with nothing. Which means I'll be left with nothing. Because Shukracharya is dependent on Bali Maharaj. So he's thinking, if you give everything, then I'll be out. I'll lose my job here. So he's fearing that. So because of that material calculation, he's advising his disciple not to be charitable, not to back up his word. And he's giving him so many mundane reasons why he does not have to actually follow suit with his promise. So, Srila Prabhupada, in the purport, he very interestingly makes the point that when one connects himself with the Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari, the Lord takes away all his miseries. Because the only thing that we actually have that can be taken away is our misery. That's the only thing that we have, that we can claim proprietorship of, our misery. All the other things, they're borrowed, they're not ours. And he goes on to explain, but that superficially, it appears that the Lord also takes away material possession, reputation, education, and beauty. That this is the first installment of the Lord's mercy, that he takes away those things. And ultimately, when the devotee is bereft and left with nothing, then only the lotus feet of the Lord are his only shelter, are his only refuge. So Srila Prabhupada very often quoted this verse in relationship to his own life. And he said how the Lord had tricked him, how he had made this wonderful plan, this wonderful arrangement to liberate him from all his material entanglements so that he could wholeheartedly serve his mission. And he was very thankful for the Lord to do so. So when Krishna does this, and he is showing us in different ways that we are not the controllers, we're not the proprietors, we're not the enjoyers, then as aspiring devotees, we should remember this purport, and we should think, this is the first installment of the Lord's mercy. Now, of course, sometimes we may lose these things because of our own foolishness and stupidity. So then we cannot claim and say, oh, this is the Lord's first installment. This is His real mercy. No. If we lose something because we're spaced out, we're forgetful, or we're just foolish, then we cannot blame it to the Lord. Whatever is hindering the advancement of a sincere devotee will be taken away, because the process of Krishna consciousness is very powerful. So just like here, Vamandev is ready to take away everything from Bali Maharaj. In fact, not only will he take away everything, he will also take away one's mind. One will lose one's mind. Savaimana Krishna Padaravindayor Vachangsi Vaikunta Gunanu Varnane. That a devotee is simply interested in absorbing his mind fully on the lotus feet of Krishna. Now, initially, we may not be appreciative of the Lord's tactics, because for the Lord there is only one rule, no rules. The Lord's only rule is prema bhakti, prema pumarta mohan. He just wants to draw out the love from his devotee. So he does this in very interesting ways. Now, what is real win-win? We can see Bali Maharaj went from win-lose to lose-win to win-win. Win-lose was in the beginning, he had conquered, so he was enjoying, and the demigods were out, they were losing. Then again, Vamadev came, took away everything, so he was losing, the Lord and the demigods were winning, but ultimately, as we can hear a little later on, he was winning tremendously because he got the opportunity that no one else had before, that he not only had the personal darshan of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who specifically appeared because of him, to interact in a loving way with him, and he could offer charity to him, but he could surrender his own body, his own head, at the lotus feet of Vamandev, who took his third step on the head of Bali Maharaj, and thus showed his true position as a Mahajan. Svayambur Narada Shambhu, Kumara Kapila Manu, Pralada Janaka Bhishmo, Balir Vayasakir Vayam. So Bali Maharaj is there as one of the Mahajans. For eternity he will be glorified as one of the great acharyas, one of the great teachers of the science of Krishna consciousness. And that is quite extraordinary, from coming from a demoniac family. So if you have somebody who is professing this smarta Brahmin view of birth is the main ingredient, then you say, what about Bali Maharaj? What about Prahlad Maharaj? There's so many that don't fit into this description. So Bali Maharaj had this opportunity by the extraordinary mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is always kind to his devotees and is always favoring his devotees. If we think that something is outside of the purview of the Lord, then we are in Maya, because everything that we can see is resting in the universal body of the Lord. So everything that we can perceive of, that we can conceive of, is actually the Lord's universal body. It's actually His property. It's like if the microbe who is living on our skin is thinking this is my home, and this is my food, and this is my family, and this is my country, my environment. But no, I may think this is my body. But as the microbe is in Maya, in the same way I'm in Maya, because actually everything belongs to the Supreme Lord. It is all part of His property. So, the Lord is testing His devotees, and He's testing them severely, as we can see in this instance of Bali Maharaj. For a king, for an emperor to be deprived of his wealth, deprived of his position, in front of all his subjects and his family members and his ancestors, is very heavy. And what is even worse, if he is addressed as a liar, that he has broken his word of honor, and he's arrested in front of his whole entire entourage, this is worse than death. This is the greatest humiliation that one can think of. Now, Bali Maharaj was in this situation, but he was not shouting, he was not screaming, he was not saying, "Excuse me, Your Honor, there's been a mistake here. It wasn't me, it was somebody else's fault." No, he was just quiet, he took it. And he was just there, he hung his head, he was shedding tears. His grandfather, Prahlad Maharaj, came. He could not show his appreciation and welcome, but he just offered his tears. And in this way, he pleased his grandfather. He thought his grandfather is certainly not very pleased. Here the Lord is present, and he has made a promise. He can't fulfill his promise. This is a very, very traumatic situation. So he was certainly in total distress. But he took it. He took it. Tate nukampam susamikshamana bunjana evatma kritam vipakam ridvak babubir vidadan namaste jiveti mo yo mukti pade sadaya bhak. To a devotee who is patiently enduring all kinds of hardships and distress, knowing very well that the Lord will ultimately show His mercy, His kindness, His benedictions upon him. To such kind of a devotee, the Lord is very merciful. He's very favorably inclined. So, this is also one of the verses that Srila Prabhupada quotes a lot in his purports. So we can remember this example of Bali Maharaj, because nowadays in this world, we're all striving to be successful, because nothing succeeds like success. Everybody is attracted to success. But what is success? Success is not to have a few things. Bali Maharaj had everything, but he didn't consider it really as a success. But real success means to surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because full surrender, or Atmanivedana, this process of bhakti, it is what makes everything work. It is what makes everything successful. Like you can see, Bali Maharaj went from win-lose to lose-win to win-win. You have the example of Putana. She came, aho, baka. You know the shloka? Kalas tutam. That is a very wonderful verse. How wonderful is it that Putana, she came to Vrindavan and she smeared poison on her breast to kill baby Krishna. Her intentions were very, very demoniac. She was the ultimate terrorist, child murderer, child abuser. But Krishna, being so kind towards her, he not only accepted her milk, he took the poison, he took the milk, he also took her life, but he gave her a place as one of his eternal mothers. So certainly, this was a lose-win. She was killed. But she achieved the highest perfection. There's so many examples in the Srimad Bhagavatam. There are other devotees whose motivation and whose dedication are so selfless. They're so they're so humble that they will not even object when the Lord is abusing them. So I was in Rishikesh a little more than a year ago, and we had a program at Shivananda Ashram with the Acharya and 20 sannyasis and 120 guests. And my spiritual master, Srila Radhanath Swami Maharaj, he was giving a talk. But before the talk, the resident sannyasis, they were chanting the entire 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, universal form, more than 50 shlokas, like we just chanted Brahma Samhita. From memory, they were chanting whole 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Then 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. And already it was getting late. And I was thinking, oh, this is very nice, but I would like to hear Maharaj speak. But then first the Acharya has to speak. So the very elderly sannyasi, he started speaking in 1969, or whenever was the first Rath Yatra in San Francisco. When was the first? Who remembers? Anyhow, he said, I was in San Francisco, and in Golden Gate Park, Swamiji got all the hippies and drug addicts to chant, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And he went into ecstasy because he remembered Prabhupada chanting and the devotees doing Sankirtan for Rath Yatra. Everybody thought, oh, now he will speak Vedanta, he will speak, dry philosophy. But he immediately hit the high note. And then he said, then in 80s, I went to New Vrindavan, I saw Prabhupada's palace of gold, and I met Radhanath Swami. And so he was very impressed with the work of ISKCON, and he asked Maharaj to speak about Trinadapi Sunichena, about the humility of a devotee. And Maharaj was speaking and narrating the story of Kolavecha Sridhar. And he was telling how Sridhar was so poor that he had no proper place to live. He was just in a hut, bamboo hut with some grass roof. Needs repair all the time. Rain is coming through. He had no proper furniture or utensils. His only utensil was one broken iron lota, which was with holes in it. Such a bad state that even thieves did not want to look at that lota. It looked so impoverished. And he was mentioning how Sridhar, he was so poor, but still half of his income he would spend for worshipping Mother Ganga. And he was chanting, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. He was chanting the holy name of Krishna day and night. He had no proper clothes. There was more knots than holes than cloth in his dress. But when Mahaprabhu came as Nimai, he would argue with him every day for hours about the price of bananas. And then Nimai would say, your goods are no good. Today I will not pay. I will just take. And he would grab it and run away. So this was certainly a lose-win relationship. But Sridhar, he was happy. Okay, I lose. You win. Fine. Take it. He was not upset. He was not disturbed. Now, lose-win in the mundane context is summed up as the doormat. Okay, I'm the doormat. You can clean your shoes on me. I don't mind. I don't object. But this incident, this whole scenario just shows that whether we're in win-lose, lose-win, or win-win, or lose-lose, if there is no bhakti, it's meaningless. Just as a side story, what is lose-lose? Just like Vishvamitra and Vasishta, they were enemies. They had a long-standing quarrel. It was like in some political arenas of the world, they have long-standing differences of opinions. Even though they're brothers and they're very close, but long-standing differences of opinion. So at one point, Vasishta and Vishvamitra, they cursed each other. You become a bird. And he said the other one, okay, you become a duck. And as a duck and a bird, they continued fighting. Huh? That is typical lose-lose. Okay, I lose, I'm destroyed, but you also lose, you're also destroyed. Like one man, he found out that, wealthy man, he found out that his wife was divorcing him. So what he did was, he sold his car for $1 and he burned his house down. He said, okay, fine. You get nothing, I get nothing. We both go home happy. Well, there's no more home, but he felt satisfied. Of course, this is tamagun, this is complete ignorance. But that's the nature of the mature world. So, Nimai Pandit one day said, Sridhar, you're a rascal, you're cheating everybody. You're showing to be a very poor man, but very soon I will expose you that you're the most wealthy of the whole Navadvip area. And Sridhar said, what? Look at me. I have nothing. Why you make fun of me? Why do you mock me? If you don't like my goods or myself, why don't you go somewhere else and get your bananas from some other place? Nimai said, no. I know when I have a good supplier. So I will keep coming here. But, I will teach you a lesson. So, when he was manifesting his Mahaprakash in the house of Srivas Thakur, and he sat on the throne, and he manifested his supreme form as Vishnu, he gave blessings and boons to all his devotees, and he called for Sridhar. And Sridhar was way outside, he was not there. But when Sridhar came, the only blessing, the only benediction, the only boon that Sridhar wanted was that wherever you take birth, wherever you appear in this world, let me be that person who can supply you with bananas and leaves and flowers. Please come and argue with me, and please come and steal bananas from me. So he was praying to the Lord to be in this lose-win relationship, because it was drawing out his heart, he was drawing out his love. So as Srila Radhanath Maharaj was telling the story about Sridhar, I was watching these sannyasis, because they were all like very serious. These are all Sanskrit scholars, very serious, staunch sannyasis. So I was watching the 20 of them, and I saw some of them were smiling, some of them were laughing, and some of them were melted on the floor like a puddle. So I realized that every metal has a melting point. No matter how hard-hearted, no matter how engrossed one is in one's bubble, in one's consciousness, if one becomes exposed to high potency, high density of Krishna consciousness, that person will melt, and they will become affected by Krishna consciousness. And it's very interesting to see that when Vamandev showed his opulence and he showed his supremacy, and then he asked Shukracharya, you please tell me, what is the fault of your disciple? Or in other words, why did you curse him? So he pointed out where there was room for improvement, but he did it in a very gentle, in a very kind way. And Shukracharya not only could make amends, but also he could chant the holy name of the Lord. He got that opportunity, and he was freed from his offense and from his disrespect towards Bali Maharaj by chanting the holy name. Now, of course, we know that history repeats itself. His sons, Sandana Marka, were instructing Prahlad Maharaj in so many ways. So, this is a common scenario in the material world. So, devotee is not swayed. A devotee is not illusioned by all these different influences. Srila Prabhupada writes in one of the purports to this pastime that the cause of all suffering in this world. Would you like to know what is the cause of all suffering in this world? It comes from extravagance. When we are extravagant, when we try to acquire, to own, to enjoy more than our quota, then we will suffer. Basically, we are not following the Ishavasya principle. Ishavasya midang sarvam yatkincha jagadyan jagat kena tyaktena bunjita magridaha kasasviddanam. A devotee knows that everything belongs to the Lord and that I will only take my quota. Of course, Bali Maharaj thought, my quota is the universe. But Vamandev explained to him that no, your quota is not the universe. There is a certain order in the universe. So you're in charge of the demons, that's fine. When the demons came to attack, of course, they got defeated and they were sent off down to the lower regions. But then the Lord gave Bali Maharaj Sutala, which is more opulent. It is a lower planet, but it is more opulent than Indralok. So, even though he had just lost everything, he went from win-lose to lose-win to win-win. He was blessed with the highest, most opulent position in this world. And not only did he get his own planet, and undisputed rulership over that situation, but the Lord himself became his doorkeeper. Krishna is known as Bhaktavatsal. He's very merciful, very kind towards his devotees. Like when we distribute books, I ask people, are you a developer, or are you a manager, or are you an owner? And then I ask them, or are you just the driver? Because everybody's driving their kids around. And then they laugh. And then I show at the Bhagavad Gita and I say, Partha Sarati, Krishna is also the driver. Why? Because of the love of his devotees. Krishna is conquered by the love of his devotees. So, Vamandev, he has agreed. He has become the doorkeeper of Bali Maharaj. One time, Ravan came and he wanted to pick a fight with Bali because he thought, this guy's a good match. Let me go and fight with him. But Vamandev kicked him. He kicked him how far? Somebody remembers? Big distance, very far. Of course, we can say Ravan got the mercy. He got kicked by Vamandev. So Vamandev took this position of being the doorkeeper of his devotee. Why? Because of love. Because love is what actually conquers the Lord. We have Madan Mohan. Krishna is known as the conqueror of Cupid. There are many instances where Krishna conquered Cupid with his own beauty, with his own prowess, in the form of Naranarayan Rishi, in the form of Krishna, his original form, in so many ways. He conquered Cupid in so many different instances and occasions. But he is being conquered by the love of his devotees. Madan, Mohan, Mohini. Srimati Radharani is conquering Krishna, who is the conqueror of Cupid. And Cupid conquers everybody in this world. From the ant up to Brahma. Everybody is under the spell of Cupid's influence. So if we can avoid extravagance, we will avoid suffering. So this is quite something interesting to take note of. Because usually our suffering has a direct link with our tendency for extravagance. That we think, oh no, I need a little more. Just a little more. And we then run into trouble. Like you can see. People going to the stores to buy things. Then people going to the store to exchange things. Then people are going into the stores to argue about things. So it's an ongoing pastime of dissatisfaction. Because the expectations, the motivations are not pure. Anya abhilashita shunyam jnana karmadhyanavritam anukulyena krishna nushilanam bhakti ruttama. Rupa Goswami defines in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that Pure devotion is devoid of the desire for karma and gyan. So if we want to achieve the highest success, we should be careful that we do not follow into this trap. So full surrender, as exemplified by Bali Maharaj, is our goal. This is what we as devotees consider success. Success comes in pleasing the Lord. Bali Maharaj pleased the Lord by his surrender and by his devotion. And whatever situation a devotee may find himself in, he will not become disturbed. Narayana parak sarvena kutaschana bibhyati svarga pavarga narakeshu apitulyartha darshana. Just like Chitraketu Maharaj. He was cursed by Parvati. You take the body of a demon. Well, he came and he took blessings. He said, fine, I'm going to be a demon, but please give me blessings. I will be able to remember the Lord. So, Bali Maharaj's pastimes also shows to us that if the spiritual master deviates from his duty of enlightening and connecting the disciple with the Supreme Lord, then such a guru has to be rejected. We should not follow such a guru blindly. And this has been shown in different occasions, in different parts of the scriptures. Yes, Guru na sasyat, Svajano na sasyat, Pita na sasyat, Svajani na sasyat, Daivana sasyat. Yes. Namo jayat yak samupetya mrityum. Which means that if a person cannot deliver his dependents from the cycle of birth and death, then they're not qualified to be father, mother, husband, guru, teacher, worshipable demigod. One should not take those positions. In other words, first become a devotee. First learn the science of Krishna consciousness. Then assume these other functions and roles and positions. So this is win-win 101. That for a devotee, success is the pleasure of the Lord. When Krishna is pleased, everybody is pleased. Yatha taror mula nisechanena tripyanti tatskanda bujopashaka pranopahara chayatendriyanam tathaiva sarvarhanam achyuteja. Just as by watering the root of the tree, all the branches, the trunk, the branches, the twigs, the leaves, the flowers, the fruits, everything becomes nourished and satisfied. In the same way as giving food to the stomach will satisfy all the limbs and parts of the body, by worshiping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all the demigods and all living entities, we become satisfied. That is the wonderful nature of bhakti. In this world, people want to do good for others, but they don't know what it means to do good for others. They think, oh yes, I gave this homeless person some money, I'm a very good person. They don't know that this person just went to buy intoxication with that money and has done something bad with it. And that person who gave charity in a mode of ignorance is implicated in that reaction. Now people want to do so many good deeds, but they don't realize that often their good deeds are creating more harm than good. There's so many instances of this. But as devotees, we should understand what is the highest good deed to satisfy Krishna. Bhaktaram yagatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suridam sarvabhutanam gyatva mam shantirichtati. If we are actually acting in true knowledge, always conscious that Krishna is the enjoyer of all sacrifice, He's the proprietor of everything, and He is the friend and well-wisher of all living entities, then Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Otherwise, no peace. People are grappling with the scenario of all the different difficulties that we're facing in this world nowadays, politically, economically, socially, and even spiritually. There's crisis on every level. But the solution that worshiping the Supreme Lord through the performance of Harinam Sankirtan is usually not coming up in these forums and discussions. People just think, oh, let us divide honestly. It's like the thieves who robbed the bank, and then they're in their hideout, and they're saying, okay, now let us divide honestly. But what is this honesty amongst thieves? There is no honesty amongst thieves, because they're thieves. So unless we improve the character, unless we improve the quality of the personalities involved, the whole thing will not really go anywhere. It will not really evolve. So how can we have this win-win mentality? It comes from an abundance mentality, which is very much diametrically opposite of this scarcity mentality. A Brahmin has an abundance mentality because he knows Krishna is no poor man. Srila Prabhupada said, let the whole world come, we will feed them Krishna Prasadam. Just like Madhavendra Puri. He held this grand festival for his deity, Gopalji. And he just served everybody. There was no scarcity. And the more they had, the more people came. And the more people came, the more they brought. And the more they served, the more people came. And for many, many consecutive days, they were holding this grand festival. Because there is no scarcity. The only scarcity comes when we have kripana mentality. Yanmaituna digriyamedi sukhamitucham kanduyana yudukha dukkam tripyanti dukha bhajam. This verse, Prahlad Maharaj explains that the miserliness, this kripana mentality of a miser is exemplified when we get attached to I, me, and mine, to all the things that go around and are in relation with the body. But this is overcome by the process of Harinam Sankirtan. Because this Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large. Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam. All auspiciousness is created by the performance of Sankirtan. So, for a devotee, nothing is palatable without a relationship to Krishna. He's not interested in mundane piety. He simply wants to serve and please the Lord. So what are different steps for success? To sum it up, the first step is to worship the Lord, to worship Krishna. Because Krishna is the root of all existence. And when we worship Krishna through worshipping Guru, we can actually make advancement. And by following dharma, by following religious principles, we can achieve the desired objective. Even if it means that Krishna will play some of his loving tricks with us. Krishna may sometimes give us things. He may sometimes take things away from us. He has different ways in which he deals with his devotees. Just like one time Krishna was in Vrindavan. Baby Krishna. Bal, Gopal. And he was a very small boy. And he could just about walk. So he heard one fruit vendor, one lady from the forest who was outside. He heard her call out, fruit, fruit, anybody wants some fruit, please come here. So Krishna, he had, from his experience, from his parents, he had seen how they would take some grain and go outside and trade that for fruits. So little baby Krishna came. He picked up with his little hands. He could barely walk. He was just around 1 year old. So he went outside and he had one handful of grains. But because he was walking and moving, so most of the grains fell down. And he went to that fruit vendor and he brought her these few grains. There was only a couple of grains left in his hand. But the lady, when she saw Krishna, she became so enamored by his exquisite beauty, because Krishna is Shyama Sundar. Nama pankachanabhaya, nama pankachamaline, nama pankachanetraya, namaste pankajangraye. Krishna, he has a lotus face, he has lotus feet, his body is shaped like a lotus. So Krishna has very exquisite bodily features. And he's adorned by a garland of lotus flowers. So she saw Krishna's beautiful lotus eyes, and his mouth red like a bimba fruit, and his nose was shaped very delicately like a sesame flower. He had black curly hair. And he simply charmed everybody in Vrindavan. So she became so enamored by Krishna that she just put as many fruits in his arms as he could carry. Even though he had hardly any grains in his hand, she didn't even see what Krishna brought. She was just piling up the fruits on him. And Krishna was very happy. He got all these fruit, brought it back into the house. So then when she looked into her basket, it was full with precious stones, emeralds, rubies, sapphires, lapis lazuli, diamonds, gold. So the point is, Krishna first. We should never think, oh, what is in it for me? What will I get out of this? No, Krishna first. When we make sure that Krishna is first, then we will never be the losers. We will always be the gainers. Just like they say, when they offer prasad to the Lord, it has become more. It has not become less. The mundane tendency is that when you give something away, you have less. And that is the fear that people have. What if I give? Then I won't be left with anything. But a devotee knows, if I give to Krishna, I will have more. And we have seen that in very practical ways, in so many instances. So, if we want to become successful, like Bali Maharaj, then we should follow his example as a Mahajan and always focus our mind. How can we please the Lord? How can we act for His pleasure? How can I carry out the instruction of my spiritual master? How can I connect living entities with Krishna's mercy through this process of Harinam Sankirtan? How can I give people Prabhupada's books? I was just up in Haidashbury and I met one boy and he said, I just saw you in Rishikesh a few weeks ago. Then he was like, you again? Then he took a book. Rishikesh he didn't take, but here he took. So often people need to see us a few times before they have confidence. Oh, this is something serious. This is real. That's why it's so important that the devotees are everywhere, chanting and dancing and giving out prasadam and giving books. To gain people's confidence, to gain their faith. So Bhakti Yoga, our devotional service, is not a zero-sum game. It's not that there's always gain. There's always profit. Because this is a personal process. Krishna always comes through for his devotee. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Any reflections, comments, questions? Yes, please. We have microphone. And as a last point, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, in the 2nd chapter, text 40, Neha bikramana shosti pratyavayana vidyate swalpamapyasya dharmasya traite mato bhayat. That only little advancement on this path can save you from greatest danger, greatest fear. What is that greatest fear? Punarjanma. To again go into lower birth, to again take material birth. But just a little advancement on the process of bhakti can save one from this greatest fear. So anybody who touches a book, who sees a devotee, who says Hare Krishna, becomes fortunate, becomes blessed. So let us become fortunate and make other fortunate by this performance of Sankirtan. This is the prayer of Prahlad Maharaj. Let the whole world become fortunate and auspicious and satisfied by engaging in this devotional process. Please.
Hare Krishna. In the Prabhuji, in the Bali Maharaj Leela, there is one nice in the conversation between Shukracharya and Bali Maharaj. He asks one question to Bali Maharaj. He asks one question to Shukracharya, to which Shukracharya himself has no response. That I thought was very fascinating, because he asks him, now you are preventing me to giving all this to Vishnu, even if he is Vishnu. But all this time you conducted so many yagnas for him. Now when he himself has come, why you are preventing to give all this to him? So to Shukracharya had no response to it.
No response, yes.
So such is the intelligence of a devotee.
But ultimately, Shukracharya, once he came to his senses, he completed the yagya of Bali Maharaj and made sure everything was pakka, everything was perfect. But it took a while. This also shows to us that when we do yagya, it's not that everything will just go smooth. There will be obstacles. There will be some challenges in the performance of that yagya. Like the sages in Namisaranya, they wanted to do yagya and they got negative result. So they realized this process is not working. We have to maybe do something else. So often in our lives and even in our society, we try to do yagya, but it's not working. So then we should take guidance and counsel and direction. Maybe it has to be done in a slightly different way. To be relevant, to be able to actually get positive result. Like they tried to do fire yagya, it didn't work. They chanted Bhagavatam, it worked. In the same way, we've tried a few things in ISKCON, and a few things didn't work. We tried to conquer the world, didn't work. We tried to acquire so many huge properties, most of that also didn't work, it didn't stick. We had so many plans for expansion. Maybe we should do just what Prabhupada told us to do. You do Sankirtan, you study Bhagavatam, and you boil the milk. You train people to be dedicated to the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And that will work, because that is the only thing that does work in this age of Kali. Everything else may, for a short time, be considered a success. But actually it's quite meaningless. We know that the 500 most wealthiest people on this planet have each over $1 billion in assets. And they control about 80% of the wealth of the world. But tomorrow they're all gone. And nobody remembers their name. So it's quite meaningless to make it into these top 500 lists. But if somebody can offer Krishna with devotion and love a fruit, a flower, or some water, he will make it in Krishna's book, on Krishna's list. And that is what counts. Yes?
Another shlok, very nice, related to this. I don't know, maybe from Ramayana. Tulsi dal matrena jalasa chulkena va abhyam dadami tasmai etat vratam mama. With one leaf of tulsi and little bit of water, I will make you completely fearless. This is my vow to you.
Which shows to us, thank you, that Krishna is very modest. He has no big demands. He is the most modest. Of course, he said only 3 steps of land, and he took everything with that. So he may say only Tulsi and Ganga is water, but ultimately he captures the heart of the devotee. But the devotee is very happy, is very blissful to be captured and to be the property, to be the dedicated servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There is no more glorious and no more wonderful position in this universe. Of course, Krishna, in his unlimited kindness, he also allows himself to become subjugated to that love of the devotees. And sometimes he takes a subordinate role by accepting his devotees as parents or as lover or as friends. And so in this way he is Rasa Bihari. He is engaging in wonderful loving pastimes. Other points? Do we have something from the internet?
Hare Krishna. Thank you for a very nice class. You say this is a beginner's class on surrender. Maybe I need a beginner's class to get into this class. My question to you is that what can we do to overcome our resistance to surrender, our resistance to go out on books? That's my specific question. It's like we know it's the thing to do, but my mind is telling me, just stay at home, chant some japa, read some books. So can you give us some practical pointers to overcome this resistance that I deal with?
Thank you. Well, usually when we do the opposite of what the mind tells us to do, we're closer to the truth than if we follow the mind's advice. But that's just a general observation. The mind is a rascal, and it does not like to surrender to Krishna. So any situation which will entail surrender, the mind tries to shy away from it. No, I'm not going to serve out prasadam now because, it's a lot of people and it's a long queue and I'm very hungry and I got to go and anyway, the item might get over, by the time I'll take prasadam. He'll give a long list of arguments, The mind is like Shukracharya. He'll just come up and spin off all these reasons and logic. But then intelligence has to kick in and has to say, no, we're doing it. Why are we doing it? Because it's pleasing to Krishna. Why does it please Krishna? Because it pleases spiritual master. It pleases the devotees. It's the Yuga Dharma. So we have to have knowledge. The mind, indriyani paranyahur, indriyabhya paramanaha, manasastu parabudir. The mind is conquered by intelligence. We can't do it on a sensual platform. Okay, I'll just control my senses and then my mind will, No, we need superior firepower. Because the mind is higher than the senses. Sometimes we see very often, like Prabhupada, the translation is given in the Brahma Samhita that people are doing these very stern austerities, yogic vows of tapasya for millions of years. But they're not reaping the ultimate fruit, the ultimate benefit from it. So, superior intelligence. So have your arsenal of good reasons why you do what you do. And thus you will always be able to conquer the obstinate mind. And what also sometimes argumentative behavior and logic and reason will fail because the mind is set in its way, then another good tactic is you just neglect the mind. You just say, that's okay. You can stay home and do your thing. I'm going now. I will go on Sankirtan because this is my mission, this is my duty. If you want to be morose and just, suck your thumb, then just sit at home. I'm going now to do devotional service. And one just goes. And then the mind says, okay, all right, okay, fine. You win, I lose. But ultimately, because bhakti is involved, it turns into a win-win. After a while, you think like, oh, I got to stop. And the mind is like, no, we're not stopping. This is great. This is fantastic. Let's go. This person, that person. Look here, there. Another one more book. And time is flying. And then you look at your mind and you say, what happened to you? A few hours ago, remember? Stay home and, all the melancholy. So, the devotee is not swayed by the ways of his or her mind. But we need to have this superior intelligence which comes from Shastra, from spiritual knowledge, and higher taste, that we have this memory, it's there. We know, I've had this experience of surrender, and it is sweet surrender. It was very, very blissful. I want to taste that again. If there is no realization, very hard to go on. It becomes very mechanical. And eventually we cannot sustain our initial enthusiasm. And good association. We may not be the most anything, but if we associate with other devotees who are fixed up and they are blissful, that will rub off on us. And we'll just think, wow, okay, it works. If he can do it, I can do it. And we follow their example. And sometimes you're not enthusiastic, but you just act enthusiastic. Sometimes you don't feel like dancing. Sometimes you don't feel like chanting, but you just dance and chant anyway. Initially, it's a little mechanical. Like when you jump start a car, and the car doesn't work because your battery is flat. Then what do? You have to jump start it. So either you have jumper cables, which means you have another vehicle who is powerful, or if it's not an automatic, if it's a stick shift, you can actually jump start it by pushing it. So then it's a little artificial, and it takes a lot of energy to push it. But once it gets going, it actually works. It's not the most pleasurable way of how to start a car, but it's one of the ways that it's possible. Any other points?
I think you are mentioning that means we are not doing our due. Like ultimately, Krishna takes care everything from away when he shows his mercy.
Yes.
Like Bali Maharaj, and even sometimes we lose in life. So now, like as you're mentioning, like we do our mistake, we don't do our duty properly, and they think that okay, Krishna is taking away things. Like get into that zone that I lose because of my mistake, but I think, okay, it's Krishna's mercy, he's taking away. So how to build up that knowledge that whether it's because of my laziness or is because of Krishna's mercy?
Just like you have a car and you don't put oil in the car and the engine blows up, and then you say, oh, it's Krishna's mercy, he has taken away the car. That's stupidity. You understand? But if we're in a situation and that situation changes because of some higher influence that is outside of our purview, then we should see it that this is, the Lord has arranged this. And sometimes things just happen according to our karma, it may seem. But for a devotee, there is no such thing, because he knows that the Lord has a plan and he wants to bring me closer to him. So this is all just part of his plan. Even if sometimes things look like things are going wrong. Like you study Lilamrita, Prabhupada's life. There's many challenges, many obstacles, many projects, many things that didn't work out. But Prabhupada always saw that Krishna is calling me closer to him. He was never feeling resentful or grudging or confused or bewildered. Because he had that realization that Krishna has this plan, and I'm simply an instrument in his plan. Oh Lord, make me dance, make me dance. I don't know why you have brought me here to this land, but I'm sure you have a plan. Now you can fulfill your plan and the meaning of what you intend me to do. I'd be happy to be your instrument, your puppet. Materialist, anything bad that happens, he blames it on God. And anything good that happens, he takes credit. A devotee is the opposite. Anything bad that happens, he will say, it's my fault. It's because of my negligence. Anything good that happens, he gives credit to others and ultimately to Krishna. So this is the difference. And we have to be careful because, as we see in Bali Maharaj's case, according to our guna and karma, according to the situation that we're born in, we still have these character traits. We still have these natures, this guna and karma, that we tend to identify with certain mindsets and patterns. So the solution is to connect everything to Krishna. And if we're still confused, think, how would my spiritual master act in this situation? Take guidance. But very often we are not taking guidance. We think, I know. I'm a big boy. I can manage. I know what's going on. Then we run into a problem. So, Bali Maharaj, even though he was the ruler, he was the emperor, he always took guidance from his guru, from the Brahmins. Now, of course, when something was detrimental to bhakti, to devotional service, he rejected that advice because he knew what was ultimately meant to please the Lord, what was necessary to please Krishna. He was not confused about his goal. So in the same way, we should also be fixed up in our goal of what it is that we're trying to achieve here. In this way we can remember Krishna like King Kulashekar, who is praying in this wonderful prayer, Krishna tvadiya padapankacha pancharatam. Now that I'm young, let the swan of my mind be intertwined with the lotus of your lotus feet, because now I can still remember you. But when all the body is disturbed, how easy is it to remember you then? Very difficult. Now we know Katvanga Maharaj, he did it. He knew I only have one moment left, less than a muhurta. So he immediately went to Vrindavan, surrendered, and got supreme perfection. So how can we develop this mood of surrendering to Krishna now? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Satatam kirtayanto mam yadantas chadradavrata. Continuously chanting and engaging in Sankirtan. Chanting and spreading the holy name. Please take this book. Please take this prasad. Please remember Krishna. This will enable us to gain that clarity of mind and that decisiveness that we can actually surrender when it counts. Because you think, wow, such a long life, but then moment of death is a moment, you know? So how do I learn to do the right thing in that moment? Abhyasena varagyena. By constant practice and by developing detachment from what's not favorable. By acquiring spiritual knowledge, good association, and higher taste. So that ultimately in that point, that moment of death, it's just a moment. Even though the process of dying is maybe brief, it may be elongated depending on the situation, but the moment of death is just a moment. But if we have learned to give Krishna priority, to focus exclusively on Krishna, to dedicate our life, our activities exclusively for the pleasure of Krishna, pranararthai diya vacha, then Krishna, by his own mercy and kindness, he will appear in that moment. and he will take the devotee. That is the guarantee that we have been given, and we can see in so many instances. Thank you for your kind attention. Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan, Shriman Mahaprabhu, Lakshmini Singade Bhagavan ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Grantarat Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Gaur Premanandi. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha, Kripasindubhyevacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Namaha. Thank you very much. All Gaush Prabhupada.